Structural change is taking place in the legal ranks, and it's resulting in crimped margins and declining profits for many law firms. But there is a silver, or should we say green, lining to this story. For more, let's go now to George Beaton from Beaton Capital. He's with us in the Melbourne studio. Welcome, George, and great to get a chance to chat to you. We talk about firm profitability falling off a cliff in some sense, I suppose, when people look at the outlook. When we've heard this gloom and doom story before, I guess my question is, what's so different now when it comes to big law?
Oh, if you take a decades-long perspective on this, Brooke, with the economic cycles, go back to the early 90s, go back to the Asian currency crisis, when the economy dipped, law firm profits and revenues dipped. This time it is different because the demand side equation has changed in, as you put it, structural way. It's not a cyclical, it's secular in economic jargon. There's less demand, the work is going in-house, clients are simply doing less with external law firms, and there are new forms of competitor taking volume away from the traditional law firms.
Are you talking about overseas firms establishing in Australia, that kind of thing?
That is part of it. It's relatively small still. If you look at the new firms, the Clyde & Co's, as opposed to the rebadged firms, the Ashursts, those new firms are still quite small. No, it's much more profound than that. Of course, those firms will have an impact in the future, but right now it is this declining demand and the competition that firms are engaging in for the available work and the discounting that they're engaging in to make sure they win that work.
So what, somewhat like the retailers with kind of price deflation affecting the sector in some sense?
That'd be right.
Yeah.
The cake is smaller, everybody wants their slice, and to keep the size of their slice constant, how do you do that? Well, you start discounting.
So how do you thrive? How do you innovate? We mentioned in the intro environmental law. We've alluded to it anyway as something that continues to be a growth area. Is that kind of an example of law firms redrawing business models, adapting to the new normal, so to speak?
I'd step back one before answering your direct question, Brooke. What are the opportunities firms have to preserve their profitability? And here, profit is measured as profit per equity point, or profit per equity partner is the key measure in the industry of profitability. There are three levers. There's your revenue and how you find parts of the market which are growing, of which green is one for some firms. There are your costs, particularly your fixed costs, the biggest proportion of which is your lawyers. And then there is the number of equity points on issue. Those are the only levers a firm can pull as they seek to reinvent themselves. If I come to your question, yes, aspects of the green environment, carbon, for example, are growth areas for some firms, but it's no panacea and it's no salvation. There have always been patches of growth and patches of the market which are going more slowly. Intellectual property, for example, is still a very vibrant area and will continue to be so as we become more and more of a knowledge economy. So we shouldn't think that green is the salvation of too many firms. It will be of some partners in some firms a growth area. Much more profound is how firms adapt their cost structures. And too few firms are taking too little action in our view. The surveys we do and report on a quarterly basis demonstrate quite clearly, like in the United States, like in the United Kingdom, a few firms have got up early in the morning and are making bold and major steps towards reinventing their business models, cutting their fixed costs, shifting some of their labour to variable cost. Some of this is about offshoring, some of this is about finding ways to employ solicitors only when you are working for a client.
From Beaton Capital, George Beaton, thank you very much for today. I know it was brief, but we will get to chat to you again on Law TV. Thank you. That is Law TV today, and Carson will be back next week.